Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Brunch. I am your host, RM, and of course, we have with us today Russ Whitfield. Russ, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. And how are you, Oram?
I'm doing well. I had a late night last night because we had musings on a Saturday, in opposed to a Friday
I
night.
know. I turned it on this morning, and I normally put a like if I'm dozing in the morning, I'll put like a podcast on about the Anunnaki or something like that. And looked at YouTube and I saw you on there, so I clicked on it, and literally you were saying goodbye. You were saying something about positive fandom, and Rob was saying, "Well, that's us for tonight." So I turned it off. So I haven't watched it yet, but I saw you were on. That would have been midnight, I think. LA time, so God knows what time it was for you.
Yeah, it was late, and I feel okay. I probably could use a few more hours sleep, but I am awake. And it was a good show, so I am happy about that, Russ. And I do want to say hello to Irene Jobson. Hello, Irene.
Hello, Irene.
I hope you were well. Irene says, "Good morning, lovely RM and everyone." And that random guy, Russ.
Sorry.
It's so good to see you, Irene. The pleasure is all ours. Tom Jr. Jackson is here.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, Tom. We are all goof people. Good to see you, Tom. You must be exhausted too. I certainly am feeling it, guys. And also, Darth Plato is here this morning. Hello, Darth Plato.
Hey, man.
Second breakfast. Mario Lopez says, "Have a good show." I'm assuming Mario is going to be not able to stay with us, but good to see you, Mario. Always a pleasure to see you here in the morning. And Mikey Lito is here. I got a chance to,
My conscience arrives. Hope
yes,
you're feeling okay, Mikey.
yeah, it was good to see Mikey Lito. He was able to join Tom Jr. and I for a good portion of the watch party of Tango Shalom last night. And I know you were not, maybe not in the at your best form, but Mikey Lito, I'm just so glad you were able to join us. It's felt like a reunion of our Tango Shalom viewing in theater 2 years ago. So it was great that you could make it. Stavros is here. Hi, Stavros.
All right, Stavros.
Hope you are well. We also have Retro Nerd Girl. Retro
Oh,
Nerd
there she is.
Girl.
My
How
resident crush.
how are you, my dear? Retro Nerd Girl says hello at Positive Fandom, Russ and Tom Jr. Jackson. Well, hello to you, Retro Nerd Girl. Always a pleasure. Um, and Dark Plato's trying to give me a new start time. Yeah, it would be great. Uh, Maybe one of these days. Honestly, Darth Plato, remember it used to start at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So right now it's an improvement at midnight, and I'll take it for what it is, guys. And guys, make sure you check out Retro Nerd Girl's YouTube channel here. And Tom, don't forget to put your link in there, Tom Jr. Jackson. Um, Renz Tolentino is here. Hi, Renz.
All right, Renz.
Guys, Renz is a very talented artist. So if you haven't already checked out his artwork on his Instagram, certainly please do that. Um, guys, you absolutely have to check that out. Nathan Trujillo is here. Hi, Nathan.
Hello.
Hope you are well, Nathan. I hope everything is going well with you. Retro Nerd Girls is a friend of hers, is in Tangle Shalom. That was a nice surprise. How wonderful, Retro Nerd Girl, to find out something as cool as that. And Wex Luther is here. Hi, Wex. Oh my gosh. Wow. I hope everybody's doing great. It's a Sunday. It is obviously Sunday brunch. And Russ, certainly you and I have a lot to talk about. We skipped last week. So certainly um, this week we have so much more to catch up on. Um, Russ, you saw Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. Am I correct?
You are correct, yes.
And I would love to hear your thoughts about Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3.
I thought it was okay. I'm not going to sit here and rip it to shreds and go, it's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, and I absolutely hated everything about it. It wasn't. It was pretty forgettable, I thought. And I think, as I've never really made mine Marvel, right? so I'm not so connected to those characters. And where I suffered with Guardians 3 was I'm supposed to care about them because of what's happened to them in their past adventures and so on. And I was sitting there and I thought, Christ, when did I watch the other one? I can't even remember when I watched the other one, the second one, right? So I was like, well, hang on a minute, she was dead. Why is she alive now? I can't. When did she come back to? And why is she dead? And I can't remember why she's. Can we talk about this now? By the way,
Yes.
spoilers and all that. Yeah, so
Oh,
Gamora was
let me
dead.
just put that in there so that people know that there are spoilers for Guardians of the Galaxy and that they won't be shocked by this. Guys, we are going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, and there will be spoilers. So I do just want to mention it to you guys. If you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 and you don't want to have any of the stuff spoiled, just be aware that we are going to have spoilers during the show. And I put it up there. There's going to be spoilers. So if you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 and you don't want to know what happens, and Mario, we know you're going to be with your family. Mario, you enjoy your family. It's always a pleasure to see you, Mario.
Always good to
Um,
see you, mate. Restore the Snyderverse.
Absolutely. Guys, we're doing spoilers. So you have been warned, just so you know. Okay, go ahead, Russ.
Yeah. So um, y- you have to care about them, and of course, I've got a bit of a disconnect, and they don't. And it's correct what the writer James Gunn did was correct. Like I should care about them, and so there's no setup for me to really care about, like what's his Star Lord sitting there getting drunk, and I think, why is he drunk now? What's caused it? So I was a little bit discombobulated with it. The stuff that they did with Rocket was obviously heartbreaking, and that made you care about it, and it was pretty much his story. But as for the rest of it, I'm beginning to wonder. Like we've talked a lot about sort of superhero fatigue and things like that, and I've kind of seen all of this before. I've seen it, and I've seen the whole Guardian shtick before with, the doing the cool things with the cool pop music, and it just felt a little bit tired. I was like, I had to watch it. I didn't think it had to be however long it was. It felt like it was 5 hours, and it really wasn't 5 hours, but it kind of felt like it. Um, I thought that Adam Warlock. See, I have read, but I don't know because I never really made mine Marvel, right? So, but apparently he's quite a badass character and a bit of a guy that everybody's wanting to see for such a long time. But of course, he's been played for laughs in this show for whatever reason, whatever creative decisions Gunn has taken to do that. But the shining light of the film for me was actually the High Evolutionary. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He was a guy, and he wasn't like a sort of he wasn't evil for evil's sake. He's got a point. But it's almost like Andor, isn't it? The sort of banality of evil, like he'll just wipe things out, and when they say about the pets, and he goes, well, incinerate them, duh, as if you would do any other thing. But what I did like about it was, it seemed to conclusively draw a line under it at the end. Obviously, there are options to do other things, but it was nice to see something nice to see something come to an end. Like, what I didn't do? I didn't stick around in the credits though. I like literally as soon as it ended, I just turned it off. So I don't know. Was there an end credits or a mid credits or anything like that?
Yeah, there is an end credit scene.
Oh, I don't know what that is. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's not for me. It wasn't. It didn't really matter that much. I think he meets his father.
What, Kurt Russell?
Um, no, or maybe it's his mother's family or something like that.
Right. Because
Um,
Kurt Russell ego is his dad, right?
yeah, I believe so. And I think I'm sorry, it's his mother's side of the family that he meets,
Right.
and he goes there, and I think and maybe it's his grandfather, I guess,
Right.
that he meets.
Yeah,
Maybe
because he's talking about family, isn't he? That's one of the sort of the through lines of the thing. So I imagine that was nice. That was sweet then. But yeah, no, look, it was all right. You know, but again, I've said so many times about Marvel movies. I've not got a lot to say about it. Like, you know, I went to Marvel McDonald's. I ate my Guardians of the Galaxy 3 Big Mac, and I, you know, finished it off, turned it off, and put YouTube on, and that was that. You know, and I haven't thought about it since. Um, and you know, but that's very much that's my bad. I'm not saying this is a bad film. I'm not saying that you can't love this film and think it's the greatest film of all time. It just didn't resonate with me particularly. Um, Yeah, so do I. Retro. Retro says here, I like a nice evil character. Yeah, I do, and I thought he was really handled brilliantly. Um,
Fantastic actor.
I wonder if he's going to be Brainiac in Superman Legacy. He seems like nailed on. I mean, he'd do a brilliant job, I think. Um, but yeah, so it was all right, and that's my hot take. Is the guys were making fun of me in the chat, like, "Wow, you know, hot take." Well, yeah, sorry, but I got nothing. I don't really have anything particularly insightful to say about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, other than the baddie was brilliant, and I'm glad that it's over, and I wish them every success. I don't know
Well,
how it's doing, but
it's not doing badly. People aren't necessarily complaining about it, other than the main complaint that I've heard is that it's not family friendly. In other words, the storyline with the animals
that's pretty fucking dark. Yeah.
that
Oh
just
God, have I just demonetized you? Oh
no,
no.
no, 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 you're fine. It really ripped my heart out, and for maybe about 2 weeks, I couldn't stop thinking and seeing those beautiful creatures so, like, defiled and, mutilated, and they were happy to be together. It's still even bothering me now.
Yeah, it
We're
was
happy.
horrible. It was a brilliant piece of writing. You know, like that they got you on board with that. But no, I mean this wasn't your granddaddy's Guardians by any stretch of the imagination. This certainly was like a darker movie because of those things. And even if you take the comic book aspect out of it and what the High Evolutionary is actually doing, you know, and it was pretty. Those themes are pretty hectic.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, to me, he was like, not exactly, but like the Borg, where they try to improve everybody and take technology and make them better.
Mm,
Um, but the other thing I was going to say is that I felt that the first two Guardians films did have a lot of comedy. They were generally speaking comedies, and I get
mm.
that. There was this one incredible fight scene, which I'm sure you remember, Russ, where they were all fighting in this hallway or area on a spaceship, and that looked
Yeah,
incredible. But what I was going to say is that um, the tone of the film was very dark, and I felt like the tone of this film should have been the tone that they had in Thor: Love and Thunder.
I think anything that they did with Thor: Love and Thunder would have been better than sort of what we got. To be honest with you, um, I mean, look, you know, I've said so many times, and you know, I won't sway from it. You know, James Gunn is a very talented filmmaker, a very talented writer, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Um, when it comes to, I mean, it was good. It was just for me, it was just too long. Um, Yeah, you know what, Oram, I don't know what else to say about it. It just had no effect. It was the affecting parts were of course the animal parts, and that was good. But that was sort of over and done with as well. You know, it was like that one segment, and they sort of did it, and then they sort of got on with it, which you know they couldn't keep harking back to it, I suppose. But yeah, it was all right. Tonally, it was a good film. Yeah, good spot, Gary. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington says the same guy from DC Peacemaker was the High Evolutionary. You know what? I didn't put that together, but you're absolutely right.
He's so talented, this man.
Which makes me lean even more into the he could be Brainiac in Superman Legacy because Gunn seems to like to work with all the same people all of the time, right?
Yeah, Mike Alito, of course, I heard Mike Alito's review, and you guys have a lot of comments. Maybe I should get to just a few of them, since so many of you did mention this, and we know that Mario is going to be spending time with his family. You enjoy the family, Mario. We certainly enjoy when you can be here. Wex Luther says that no one stays dead in comics.
True say.
And Mike Alita says it would be confusing if you didn't follow the Marvel shebang. It's not the only franchise where characters don't stay dead. Mike Alito says,
But this is it, Mikey, though. You see, what's my point? My point is that I don't really stay up. I'm not all over it all of the time, and I've always found these films eminently forgettable. And that's just me. It's me. It's my fault. They're all brilliant, and I've enjoyed every single one of them, apart from a few of them. But by and large, those Marvel movies are great. They're good fun, and you want a bit. But I'm so not invested in them as characters, and in that as a franchise, that I struggled with this one to get engaged. It felt to me, now I could be completely wrong, and this could be my misinterpretation of it, and I missed the point, but I just wasn't engaged with it at all. I didn't care. Sorry.
fair enough. And Michael Alito says he's his conscience is making him zip his lip. And Stavros mentions you didn't need to do and homework, but the Christmas special was the one that would have helped you ease into this film, which a lot of people are saying. Retro Nurgle says she likes a nice evil character. Agreed with that. And Mikey Lito said, "Thank goodness there's no multiverse connection. Thank God we didn't have
Yeah.
to hear anything about the multiverse. I think that would have been a disaster." And thank you, Stavros and Mikey Lito, who says that he was there to see his mom's dad, his grandfather. And Tom Jr. Jackson says he loves the WandaVision art of book. Awesome. Star Lord will return I guess was at the end. And that's the tagline. And also we talked about the High Revolutionary. That man is so incredibly talented. Nathan says all art is subjective and he understands how you feel.
Thanks,
Um,
Nathan.
and of course, what? What? You didn't like something, Tom Jr.? I can't believe what I'm reading.
No, he hated him because he was so evil, so he's supposed not to like him.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I will. Okay. That makes sense. I thought the man who played that he was incredible. Michael Lito says shades of Luke Cage and Thalia Myers. Hi, Thalia.
Here she is.
And Wex Wither says, speaking of Brainiac, Russ, did you watch that Krypton show from a few years ago?
No, but I've been meaning to. To be honest with you, I've got it on Plex actually, and I keep thinking to watch. But I've started watching something else now, and I'm into like a series that I'm just so hooked on, and I just can't stop watching it, and I absolutely love it. And everything else has been completely sidelined until I get through the 4 or 5
Is it
seasons of this.
Spartacus?
Pardon me?
Is it Spartacus?
No, man.
It's
1980s Miami Vice.
oh yeah.
So good.
We should be
So
watching that and reviewing that on live,
oh
honestly.
man, I can't even. I can't even. I love it so much. It's just so awesome. Like I never really watched it when I was young. I think it might have been on the wrong time, or maybe I was too young I think it was like 1983 or 1984, and I was born in 71. So you're talking about me sort of like 12 or 13, and it just wasn't for me. Um, but yeah, it's so good. You kind of have to watch it with two eyes. Like with this eye, you can see how cheesy and over the top and 80s it is, but with this eye, can you imagine yourself in 1983 watching this and how cool and edgy it was and how stylish they were and the
They
music and then
were
a bit this eye you're thinking, oh god, this is ridiculous, but
no,
I love it.
it
I
was
love it.
fantastic. And Crockett and Tubbs were two of the hottest cops out there.
Jesus.
I mean, they might as well have been movie stars and club promoters in Miami, because just every time you saw them, they're just good enough to eat. That's all I'm gonna say.
But everybody, like they have all of these actresses in it, and people are just people are set dressing in that show. They're just like hot people everywhere you look. Like you're not allowed to be on Miami Vice unless if you're not physically attractive, unless you're a baddie, in which case you're
Yeah.
allowed to be. And you know, they have all these
Working
like
on it.
extended music sequences. Like you'd never get away with it. They go to this one party, and there's like a guy, like a Cuban guy, doing a cover of Lionel Richie's All Night Long. So it starts off, you know, all night long, and you get a bit of a close up of him and a bit of a close up of the people playing the guitar. Now, of course, in the 21st century, in 2023, that would be like a tiny little shot, right? No, man, they do the whole first and
He had
second
a
verse. It's like a
feature.
music video of the band. They're just
Mhm.
playing away, and all these gorgeous people, 80s dancing, you know. Oh yeah, sick, 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 sick.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we should talk about that.
Oh, don't start me. Like, don't, because it'll take over the
Well,
entire stream.
we will talk. Yeah, maybe we should. Just 80s in general. Ren Tolentino says, can Guardians of the Galaxy 3 be considered as the final movie of the Infinity Saga? It felt like closure, Russ, like you said, right?
Good point, Renz. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And that was the big strength of the film. And I, you know, again, I say about James Gunn, like he's a really good writer, and like I mean, he must know, he must have a feel for this. No, I'm gonna stop this now. I'm gonna make this definitive as you can in the MCU. They've, they've split up. It's over. They're not back together. He's gone home. Blah, blah. It's the end of it.
Yeah, and of course, Retro Nerd Girl says Miami Vice for the win. I'm right there with you, Retro. I'll meet you in Miami, and we can relive this experience. Um, Nathan Trujillo says, Russ, you need to watch Knight Rider, not Miami Vice.
Well, Nathan, I'm
LOL.
gonna I'm gonna tell you something. After a
I'll take
period of
take
months,
off too.
yes, after a period of months and months and months of shenanigans of trying to get a car, I finally have a car. And you're damn straight I should be watching Knight Rider, because if you Google black Peugeot RCZ, that's the car that I finally got. It's my dream car. And I look out the window, I can see out the window, and I'm just so happy when I look at my car. And when I get in that car, I am no longer Russ Whitfield. I am fucking Don Johnson.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
I just play Crockett's theme constant. It's really
What?
tragic. I'm a 52-year-old man suffering from a midlife crisis with my ridiculous sports car, but I don't care. Oh, love it. I'm loving every second of it. And the novelty hasn't worn off. I've had it for a couple of weeks now, and I look out. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can see my face and my eyes. Like, so yeah, black Peugeot RCZ is the Russ mobile.
This
Google
is
it.
your
It's
goal.
lovely, and I got it relatively, you know, for a good price, because they're old cars now. They're about 10 years old, so it's not like I went out and spent 20 grand on a car, because I don't have 20 grand to spend on the car. But it was five and a half, and I had that, saved that up, and I got it, and I love it. And yeah, sorry, Mikey Lito says here, I could see Russ in one of those Miami Vice outfits, put some socks on. I was wondering whether I could get away with some, you know, high waisted trousers and like a shiny suit or whatever, you know, to complete with my RCZ. But I think that particular fashion period has flown. Not even I could get away with it.
Well, I think if you were in Miami, you could get away with it. No one
Yeah,
would
I'd be
give you a
driving on the wrong
second.
side of the road though, wouldn't I? But yeah, maybe. But
Or
no, I
maybe
do love it.
maybe if you were on the southern France or something like that,
Yeah.
you could get away with it. And I think no one would even bat an eye. They would just, obviously be looking at you, enjoying yourself, and you would fit right in there. Um, Wex Ruther says, Miami Vice, my dad let me stay up late to watch because it was on Fridays. Yeah, remember those days when it was just one day that you had to wait for that day for the show to come on?
Do you remember the tears? If you missed Buck Rogers or Battlestar Galactica or whatever, that was it. It'd gone.
And the same
You'd missed it.
Yeah, and the same for sports. Like, there was no replay. You couldn't
Mm.
catch it again. If you missed that game, it was gone. As my dad would say, there was no instant replay. And, his excuse for watching NFL show like over and over again from like the 1960s into perpetuity, where he was watching games every day of his life. But honestly, Miami Vice, oh my gosh, I wish we had something like that again, that had that passion. And honestly, I felt like Knight Rider was there was a magical element to Knight Rider when the guy announced it and he was like, Knight Rider, you
Yeah.
know, you were like, oh my God.
You know, that sort of synthwave computer music.
Yeah. And it felt like Kit, even though he's a car, it felt like he was this incredible artificial intelligence person. They've used a real person's voice, the guy from,
Sorry, RM, can you bear with me a sec?
yeah, sure. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's not all coming off. It's just got a bit warm in
Oh,
it.
Russ.
That's for the end of the year show, isn't it? I said I was going to get
Oh,
down. I was going to lose some body fat, so that we're going to do that in December, right? I've got
well,
to do
we both made the
the show
challenge.
topless. Yeah.
Look, I'll take what I can get. But we both made the challenge. I haven't lost any body fat. I think I've lost maybe 5 pounds since we made that challenge. And that was probably in January. So we're almost halfway through the year. We've got to pick up the pace. But
We do.
Russ,
I've completely failed so far. But then for 4 months of it, I didn't have a fucking car. I couldn't get to the gym. So you could say, well, you could run to the gym, but I don't have time. In my lunchtime, would take 20 minutes to run there, 20 minutes to run back, 20 minutes to work out. It's just not enough. But excuses. But I'm back at the gym now, so I'm very happy about that. So I will be ripped by December.
wow, ripped by December.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come on here showing us your ripped physique, I will work out and show my ripped physique. This show is going to be completely
What are you going to do the show topless as well, or
topless.
I'm sure the views will go through the.
I don't think I'm allowed to do a topless show on YouTube. Maybe I'll wear like a bikini top. That's what I'll do. If you are fit, Russ, we got our fitness challenge going on here. Wow. Yeah. And we can just, you can wear Miami Vice outfit if you want to. I'll wear whatever I want. It'll be just a complete and an amazing fun show where we can show off our physiques. Yeah, amazing.
We'll do the Christmas Day show in swimwear.
That's right. That's right. We will. Ren's Tolentino is talking about, I didn't expect Dog Days Are Over to be the soundtrack, but the song moved me along with the scene. It was emotional, amazing ending. Yeah, Ren's. It was certainly emotional. And Stavros was talking about the Miami Vice was a looker of a series. Don't forget the cars. I absolutely love it. Whenever I see those cars, I can't even, there's always some lot or big lot that they end up in because they have to catch a criminal or something, it's like, so the car is parked there and they have to get out of the car and you see them walking by the car and then, it's just, oh gosh. Okay. Yes.
So good.
He is on fire.
I am. I love it. I'm not going to lie, Thalia. I am completely in love with this show. It's like because I've never really seen it. I don't really know a lot about it. Like I knew of it and I knew the synthwave vibe of it and all of that stuff, Thalia. But actually watching it again with these two eyes, with your 21st century eye and your 1983 eye or 84 or 5 or whatever it was. I'm so excited. I haven't enjoyed something like this in a long time.
Well, now we're realizing how good it was. And of course, Retro Nerd Girl says, congrats on the car.
Oh, thank you, Retro.
Congrats on the car.
Nathan.
Darth Plato never watched Miami Vice. Oh my God, Darth Plato.
Do yourself a favor, mate. Join the club.
You got to watch Miami Vice, Darth Plato. Gary Bando Sandwich has nice wheels, Russ. I haven't heard anybody say that in a while. Nice wheels. Certainly. Mikey Lito says, still have to do Miami. Yeah, you mean live there, right, Mikey Lito? Because you've lived like in the coolest places, Mikey Lito, at the coolest times. Lucky you. Miami and New Orleans. Yes, Mikey Lito. If you take a trip down there, I will join you down there. Mike has bad knees. I'm sorry, Russ. Mike has bad knees, says the updated BSG was right at the time DVR came out, ironically. Yeah.
What's DVR?
BSG? DVR? You mean like it's a recording device to record TV shows? Oh.
Right.
But what's B?
Oh, you mean record it on the box? Yeah, Battlestar Galactica.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mike Has Bad Knees. Yeah, and did you do that? Did you record it, Mike Has Bad Knees? Is that what you were doing?
Do you know what? I'd forgotten all about that. Like you used to have the Skybox or whatever your cable service was, and you could tape things off it and just download the whole series and so on and so on.
In the days of old, children were used, and that is why you had children, so they could sit closer to the television and you could have their little hands turn the knob, their little hands reach up and turn the knob for you. Thank God for the children. Yes, Kit was a Cylon car.
He used to make the same noise.
Yes, he
Yeah.
was. It felt like he was alive. It felt like there was someone in that car. It didn't
Yeah,
feel
but
like.
it was the exact same sound effect that they used on Battlestar. In fact, it was another Glenn A. Larson show. Was Knight Rider.
And Stavros says the original CSI came close with Jerry Bruckheimer. Naked.
Again? What is it? What is this again?
Oh my goodness gracious. Dino Dynasty says, Russ, I saw you more of a classic Mercedes 500 SL convertible kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of like I just need a back seat. And although the RCZ has got a back, it's a tiny back seat, but it's got one.
Always need a back seat, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, guys. Mike Alito says, believe me, I was waiting to. All right. Yes, Nathan. Yes. Russ almost gave a Magic Mike the Last Dance show. It was steamy. Shirt one left the building, people. Yeah, this
Dude,
was
it's a sweatshirt. Like, I'm not naked. I'm wearing a t-shirt. Right?
well, you were like, I hope you don't mind. I'm like, I don't mind. I'm totally cool with this. And my Leo thought, I was going to get excited on a Sunday morning. Oh, I'm excited, even though, like I got stopped midway. Retro Nerd Girl says rip by December. Triple X brunch. Yeah, we are Generation XXX people. Okay, all right. Say it together. Tom
Demonetized.
It's gonna be okay. This is so much fun. You guys are making me laugh. In the words of Homer Simpson, what's a Jim? Pronounced Gyme, Jimmy. Do I see Crockett and Tubbs cosplay coming? Ooh, yeah, Russ, you could do it. You could be the British investigator that goes over there to help Crockett and Tubbs.
They don't need any help. What is it he says?
Well, you're part of Interpol.
You need a program. You need a program to know who all the players are in this town, pal.
Well, you show up, you're part of Interpol, you're investigating some kind of drug ring. And I could see that happening. Why not? Knight Rider's theme song was my ringtone for years, really. And it was Punjabi DJ who made that into like one of the #1 songs in the world.
I have to ask, Retro, was it your ringtone on one of those old Nokias that could make the ones that they go beep 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 and they would play but it would be an electronic noise? Because Knight Rider's theme would have been perfect on one of those phones, actually.
Absolutely. Excellent choice, Retro Nerd Girl. Thalia says the only chance to see it again at this time was to record it. Yeah, on the VCR. If you were lucky to have a VCR. If you had a VCR, wow. Stavros says David's arrival on the scene. You got to catch Knight Rider. I was in Miami for weeks. New Orleans, I'm too scared of past flip. Oh, I'm sorry, Stavros.
Yeah, I've been to New Orleans a couple of times.
Yeah. Oh, and I did want to pick up this one. Darth Plato says that his dream car is a 32 Duesenberg Model J. Wow.
I don't know what that is, to be honest.
Is that like something you mean like 1932 car, Darth Plato? That's incredibly retro and cool. I thought it's the kind you see in movies from maybe World War II movies or things like that. I could be wrong, but it sounds like yes. Mike has bad knees. Yes, Punjabi MC, right? Yeah, that tone from Knight Rider was mixed into a club song, and the club songs by Punjabi MC, and it's one of the best-selling songs of all time. And I've danced all over the world and have gone to different countries and heard them play that song, and it felt, I felt right at home. Russ will be built like Vin Diesel. Whoa!
Yeah. Oh, no, I think what he's referring to is there's a picture of Vin Diesel on a yacht with his gut out, and it's like, look at Vin Diesel shirtless on a yacht, and he's got like a tummy, and I think he's got a beer on the go or something like that. And somebody put underneath this particular meme, yeah, and you're skinny with a shirt, but with no yacht. What's your point? Yeah.
Well, you know what? Um, Russ will be turning into Mr. H reviews.
No, I don't think I'm going to get like that. I just want to lose some body fat, man. That's all it is.
I think you need to Photoshop your face onto maybe not Crockett and Tubbs, but somebody from Miami Vice. We need to get a really cool picture of you kind of like leaning against a car and you're dressed like somebody from Miami Vice, but it's your face. That would
Well,
be
I
awesome.
could just lean against my car.
Yes, yes, but you know what I mean. Like something, and if you can make it if you can Miami Vice it, I think that would be pretty cool because I'd love to see you Miami Vice. Take Russ and place him in Miami Vice. I think it would be cool. Tom Jr. Jackson says contact and follow Russ Whitfield at russwhitfield.com, guys. So Russ, we've been talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. We've been talking about getting ripped. We've been talking about Miami Vice. And obviously Knight Rider and the 80s. I have to ask the question. I mean, I know you kind of alluded to it. Does this change any of your feelings about Superman Legacy?
I've been pretty consistent with my feelings on that. I'm sure it's going to be good. Yeah, isn't he the guy that makes the sort of deep fake? No, Mr. Skin.
Mr. Skin is the guy who shows you nude scenes in movies.
Yeah, in films, right? How do you know that, Oren? I'm shocked that you would know
I used to watch the show all the time.
that. I've lost my train of thought now. I was thinking about
I'm
Mr.
so
Skin.
sorry, Russ.
Yeah, my feelings on Superman Legacy. I've been pretty consistent. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be a good movie. And hey, Roll Tide, Keely Chow, Roll Tide, Roll Tide. Yeah, it's not what I wanted. And I in some ways I'm hopeful that it will just expunge all of this, because I remember I've said this before, but before Superman Man of Steel came out, I was pretty anti it. What's this? And look, his hair looks silly, and there's no underpants, and there's no John Williams, and I'm gonna hate this. And of course, it changed my life. Like the past 10 years of enjoying those movies has been like a real joy for me, and hopefully, Superman Legacy will do the same. But as I've said, I also think that from what he has said of his screenplay, because we don't know what it is, I just think the ship has sailed on the golly gee, Miss Lane. Sort of. I just think it's gone. Those days are over. Like you could have got away with that early MCU, the first 5 years, and if Zack Snyder had delivered that, perhaps we would be having a different conversation. But he didn't, and I really think. I've said before, if Man of Steel came out now as opposed to then, it would be massive. It would be huge. There we go. Miami Vice on screen. Yeah, so the jury's out until the film comes out. But we've said so many times I've said so many times on this channel, whether you agree or disagree is up to you. But I've always felt that bringing Henry Cavill back and sort of saying we're moving in a different direction, but we're keeping Ben, Henry, and Gal had everybody in the DC fandom united. Everyone was like, okay, well, we kind of wanted but we've got half of what we want, and we'll go with that. Apart from the real lunatic Snyder cultists, of which there are, sad to say, a toxic minority, and there is a toxic minority, and you can't deny it. There is. We're never going to accept that. But I was happy with it. But then just to turn around and say, no, Cavill they've had him announce his comeback, that then split the fan base. Then Gunn turns around and says, have you cast anyone as Batman? And Gunn released a tweet going, well, no, because I don't know how old Batman's going to be. I never know how old a character is going to be before I cast it. It's like, well, no, hold on a minute. You just said Henry Cavill's too old.
Right.
So no. So this sounds like a deliberate decision, and we'll never know. But my fan theory and headcanon is, as I've said, when the film, when all this crap happened, was I think it's more to do with The Rock than anything else. I think the Rock and Henry were kind of like a package deal, and Gunn just didn't want Dwayne Johnson calling the shots. And I understand that. I don't like it. I understand it.
Interesting. Interesting. This is the one we need someone to put our faces on and then kind of like make it, cartoon, that cartoon app thing. So like
Yeah.
and we have some people who have joined us this morning. Certainly Norwegian Kryptonian is here. Hi.
Hello, Norwegian Kryptonian.
Hope you are well. And of course, we have Mikey Lito talking about Edward James Olmos. As Trujillo is not getting enough love here.
Intense.
He was so good. And I love how he like cut Crockett and Tubbs down to size. Like they thought they were the shit when they go in there and talk to him. And he would be like, we don't want them doing this, and it would like,
Don't ever get in my face again, detective.
it was so good. Like he knew how to control these sort of young studs, if you will, these young bucks who were coming in there all fired up, like, we got to get him, boss, we got to get him. And he would just like, calm them down. And it was great. Stubble says, joining a bit late, was visiting Mama McShape. I hope she is well, Stubble. I hope she's doing well. I hope you are well, Stubble. Always good to see you. Really, Stubble says, I've been watching through Miami Vice too, Russ.
Wow. It must be in the zeitgeist, Stubble.
How about that? Looks like it's onto something very interesting here. Nathan says, I think Superman Legacy will be better than Man of Steel. Give me a Pa Kent that teaches his son to save people instead of warning them to die. Just saying.
Sorry, I just don't agree with that sentiment. That I can't. He doesn't teach people to die. That if you got that from that movie, that's completely missing the point of what Pa Kent was saying to Clark all the time. So it wasn't teaching people to die. He just didn't want to happen to Clark what eventually did happen to Clark. When I reveal myself, it's going to change the world. You have to decide what kind of man you're going to be. And when he said, what was I supposed to let him die? And he's like, maybe. He doesn't know. He doesn't want his son to be put onto a slab and experimented on, which very much could happen. You have to understand that was a really modern take for Superman, and they address things like that. So no, I don't accept that argument. I'm sorry.
And we have
sorry, mate. I don't accept the argument.
Who says the comic books showed Superman as a hero for 70 years. I don't think the heroic, hopeful Superman has passed his time.
Well, we'll see, but you have to look back at 2006 when they did that. They rebooted Christopher Reeves with Brandon Routh, and everybody complained because it was he was a stalker, and it wasn't violent enough, and all he did was lift stuff, and it wasn't this, and it wasn't that. The Superman comics aren't selling great at the moment. I think cinematically people have moved on. I really do. Like especially actually having watched Guardians of the Galaxy. I felt, yeah, maybe now as I'm spitballing it, I just felt I needed something more from a movie than I've seen this so many times. I've seen it. I'm over it. Like, and I wonder if that's my straw poll of one. So that sort of vibe, I think we need something else. But you never know. It might be brilliant. It might be brilliant.
It's something to think about. Excuse me. Wex Luther says the big blue Boy Scout is Superman. Anything else is some other Kryptonian. And Mikey Lito says, we'll see. Nathan James Gunn has a way of making movies seem goofy. That is very interesting. Darth Pluto says Superman forever. And Retro Nerd Girl says, wow, Don Johnson. Absolutely.
Right.
Retro Nerd Girl. Oh, thank you, Nathan. How did you know? How did you know? Because I said it. I did say it. I want a Miami Vice pick with Russ and Art and Spaces superimposed on it. I am ready to take my role, my place in the Miami Vice world. So there. Joe Tyson is here, Russ.
Oh, Big Joe. Don't worry, Joe. We were just killing time till you arrived. It's okay. We can start now. No, I'm kidding. It's brilliant. Always brilliant to see you, man. I'm so happy to see you here. I hope you're doing okay. And yeah, great to see you.
Absolutely. You all have such great comments about everything going on here. Stavros talks about Superman is just an iconic figure that can live in any decade. The only change you can make is Superboys and Supergirls. Yeah, and we talked. I totally love the Superboy from the Titan show. I think he's so
Mhm.
wonderful. Nathan talks about Captain America, a Boy Scout also, but it got translated for a modern audience. And I think Gunn can do that for Superman. Yeah, he probably could. Um, there's a lot to think about here when it comes to this. And guys, we did talk about Guardians of the Galaxy for those of you who hadn't seen it. And we are kind of debating as to what's going to happen and how the Superman Legacy movie is going to turn out, how it's going to be received. How are things going to turn out after all of this? Wex Luther says letting Pod Kent die is not something any son would do when he can easily do something bad. A lot of people have debated this part in the movie.
Well, this is the kind of point. Okay, well, yes, maybe he could have done, but this was the narrative that Snyder was going with, and the script writers were going. That was their narrative. So, yes, Superman could have done loads of things differently, but he didn't because that was the story that they were particularly telling, and that was the theme. With Superman, Man of Steel was a story about fathers, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
So
And
it was what Jor-El was telling him to do one thing, and Jonathan Kent's telling him to do another thing, and he has to try and find that, find himself, and that's why he's depicted as a loner and a drifter at the beginning of the movie. He doesn't. He can do these things, and he does do those things. The first thing Superman does in Man of Steel is save those people on the oil rig, which everybody sort of seems to conveniently forget when they're having this conversation. It's not like he doesn't save things, but he, as himself, as an alien, is confused about where he is and what his place is in the world. It's a great story, but yeah, you could absolutely make that argument. But equally, that was the theme of their film. Man of Steel could have been a completely different movie. It could have been a Superman fighting Brainiac with no backstory whatsoever. And then we'd be saying he doesn't have a backstory. So, as I say, you might not like it, but narratively, it makes sense. It makes sense within its own story. It's the choices that Clark's making and that Jonathan's making, all these kind of things within that narrative. It makes sense. But yeah, sure, he could have gone and saved him. But then what happens? Then where do we take the story? Well, we have to take the story in a different direction, which is not the story that they were telling. And that's kind of my point.
yeah, good point. All right. Nathan, you're making me laugh. And thank you, Stubble, for the super chat as always, Stubble. You are such a great supporter of the channel here on Positive Fandom. I so appreciate it. Stubble says as Sunday brunch needs a cup of coffee. Well, Stubble, thank you so much for giving me that jolt that I always crave. Stubble, I so appreciate it. Really so kind of you and so generous. And I truly appreciate that. Um, uh, Nathan says, Nathan, you're giving me a chuckle here. A noble and honorable Superman wouldn't destroy a man's semi truck, no matter how rude the person was.
Which was why the film wasn't called Superman. The film's called Man of Steel. So yeah, he makes mistakes. He does stuff like that. He's not perfect. He's not a perfect embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way in that movie. And he was never intended to be. Probably until the end of the first Justice League movie is where we see Superman's arc. So yes, good point. But also, film not called Superman. Film called Man of Steel. The Superman. That's what they're calling the aliens. And we only find that they start calling him that right at the end of the film, at the beginning of the third act.
Yeah, it's something to think about, certainly. And, I think it's interesting that we're still talking about it. I always say you can tell the longevity of a film if you're still talking about scenes in the film and
Dude,
you're
I've got to say, and thank you, Stubble, for donating to RM's cause. That's really, really, really kind of you. Thanks, man. I appreciate all your donations to her. She does, like I said last week, she does brilliant work. She's always on. She's always entertaining you
thank
guys.
you.
So thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting. Things have been popping up on my YouTube lately. So anti-Snyder stuff. A lot of people still. A video dropped 2 days ago attacking the Snyder cult, and a video dropped 2 days before that attacking the Snyder cult, and how it is a cult and these people are terrible and all that. And so I watch it because I like to see what other people think about people like me, you know. And it's just interesting. But to your point, are those videos dropped within the last week. So they're
Oh,
still talking. You know, it's not me. It's not these people don't even like Snyder and what he's done, but they're still talking about it. It's quite interesting.
it is, and you guys have a lot of good comments here. Where Mikey Ludo says, "I'm so over anticipating content. Expectations can absolutely
What
ruin
content,
content."
Mikey?
Russ says a noble and honorable Superman wouldn't. Oh yes, I read that. Retro Nerd Girl says if Man of Steel saved his dad, his his dad would have been disappointed. Yeah, he was doing it because this is what his father wanted, and I think we've all done stuff like that. Maybe not like that, but we've done things that our parents have asked us to do. That's not too different, I think, for many of us. So that's something to think about. Stavros says he had time to save the dog and dad in the tree. Yeah, he definitely did. It should have been more perilous situation where his mom pulls Clark back and dad waves him off. Yeah, it could have been, that could have been even interesting too. It could have gone down many ways. He wasn't prepared, honestly, even though they live in a place where they have those horrible tornadoes. He wasn't ready for this, ironically, although he was capable of saving his dad, honestly. I think if you caught him later on, he would have handled this in like a second, and no one would have even seen him do it.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
he's supposed to be a teenager at the time, isn't he? And they gave like Henry Cavill like fluffy hair and
yeah.
all that business.
He was like one of those the kids from Superman and Lois, where they're like, "Dad,
Mm.
I could have done that, Dad." Like their attitude.
You see
So
that show there, Superman and Lois. That's a brilliant interpretation of Superman as well, and it's nothing like Snyder's Superman, but it's an equally valid portrayal of Superman. In my head canon, that's Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder characters.
yeah.
That's to my mind, that's where they ended up. That's kind of how it went for Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder after Superman 2. And that actually the way that Tyler Hoechlin portrays him and the way it's very Christopher Reevesian to me anyway, and the whole thing has that feel about it. And I often think they always say, yeah, good point, Darth Player. He goes he goes back to the restaurant and beats the bloke up at the end of Superman 2 after having killed Zod. Um, but yeah, so I figured that in my head canon, that's a natural progression for those characters. And the one thing about Superman is he's always boring. He's too powerful. You know, he's always like General Zod because he's the only guy that can stand up to him. And what they do really quite well, they do the General Zod thing with his sort of brother and the other Kryptonians in that show. But the one sort of superpower that he doesn't have is like super parenting.
Hmm.
Like he's the same as everybody else, and he makes mistakes and he gets it wrong, and yeah, and so on and so on. Which is the one, you know, he's super. He can't lift or punch his way out of being a good parent. Like he has to learn with the rest of us. So I love it.
Absolutely. And Nathan says, Russ, I like that you are passionate
Oh, I
about.
love it, Nathan. I love that. I love that film so much, and I've analysed it and I've thought about it, and of course, you know, I've been attacked for liking it ever since it came out. You know,
And Nathan, I'm passionate about Henry Cavill.
well,
So
you're only human. We all are.
and of course, Russ says, join RM on Monday night on the Burnettwork at 6 p.m. for ladies of the PGS. I'm going to be having Catherine Cook with me tomorrow. She's going to be my co-host on Ladies of the PGS tomorrow night at 6 p.m. on the Burnettwork, guys. So make sure you do check that out, guys. I almost read this wrong, Mikey Lito, because I read this as CLIT,
Mhm,
but it's actually CULT.
mhm,
I'm part of a cult because I liked a movie. Impressive. Um, oh, you retyped it. Interesting,
mhm.
Mikey Lito. I missed that. Yeah. And oh, thoughts on fitness with Nigel. With Nige. Hi, thoughts on fitness with Nige. How are you today? I hope you're well. Says Snyder Cut. Beat that guy up. What's going on? um, Darth Plato also says, "Hey, Mikey Lito, you hang out after the show, and we'll get you your Snyderverse cult robe and have a
Mhm.
official ceremony when you join. It'll be like in John Wick, where they put a brand on their arm, you know, to touch the vessel. It's like,
Yeah, I love that. That was from the 70s show Kung Fu. Remember David Carradine did that at the beginning. He had to carry out the flaming basket. Yeah.
so yes. And Tom Jr. Jackson says to me, the scene where Pa can't tell Superman not to save him was meant to teach Clark, you can't save everyone. Absolutely.
It's a decent takeaway. For me, it was just more about the choices and the things that Park Kent was trying to teach him, and then to sort of betray all of that and actually expose himself before he was ready, before he, we'd just taken the story in a different direction. They'd already set this stuff up. They'd already set it up, you know.
Now, this is interesting. Thoughts on Fitness with Nige. And I was just, like 1978 was an experience of Superman that I remember, but I don't really remember a lot about it. Like the experience that everybody had with it. I had to revisit it in the 80s. And as you say, thoughts on Fitness with Nige. Superman and Lois is good and reminds me of my 1978 experience. That's very interesting,
Yeah, it
Nige.
is. It is for me as well, Nigel. Like I was just saying, it feels like Superman 3. You know, Superman 1 and 2 were in the cinema, and then Superman 3, the series, sort of went to television, and this is where they've picked it up from, like, to 15 years later and what have you. I mean, okay, we've got to do some mental gymnastics because that was 1981 and this is 2023, but still, yeah, I love it. And I remember going to the cinema. I said my mum must have been sick of it. I saw Superman in the cinema. I can't tell you how many times I had to go to Hounslow West to watch that film. I just loved it. She bought me the record, the black double album, and it had the picture of Christopher Reeves flying, and it had all the pictures of him and them on the album sleeves. You took it out, and it was fantastic.
Thanks.
Great times.
Thanks, Mom, for all those great advice and things you've gotten us. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom. I know she can hear it. You're welcome. Like my mother would do that if I did that. Bonzo Kilborn, hey Bonzo, how are you today? Says, I think the problem with Zach is that the movies look great and the cast was perfect, but the stories do have some real problems. Yeah, probably. It's something to think about, and I hear what you're saying. I think that there were more stories to be told, but we just never got them. And that would have expanded the, what people could look at and have a greater understanding of the storylines. Because it does feel like there should have been another step and then it wasn't taken.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think the decisions that we've said this before, the decisions that they've made about, if we look at things as perhaps they should have been, and this, I'm a big Zachariah and all the rest of it. If they weren't happy with what happened after Man of Steel, and they weren't happy with Snyder's vision, then fire him. He's done one Superman movie. Sorry, Zach, that didn't make $1 billion. It should have made $1 billion. You're out. But then they follow it through, and then they dictate that they want to make more money, and Snyder's a team player. Fine, I'll cut half an hour out of the 40 minutes out of the movie. Then now the movie doesn't make any sense. Batman versus Superman. And yeah, the cinematic. Even I remember coming out of the cinema thinking, well, why was Superman in the frame? I mean, but then of course you see them in the extended cut flamethrowing the people to incinerate them, and you think, oh, that's why he's in the frame. Why didn't they show that in the thing? Yeah, so could the stories? I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't find those stories lacking. I mean, I'm fully invested in it. I'll go with it. I'll go with the narrative because I like the direction the narrative's going. I like the visuals. I like the music. I like the actors. I like the cast. I love the story. I love the whole thing. So I'm going with it. So you know what? I'm not objective. Like, I'm very, very strongly biased in one direction, and I'll sit here and I'll fight my corner for it.
Well, I do want to read this comment by Stavros because Russ, you and I were talking about this.
Yeah, this is a brilliant segue, Stavros. Actually, unbeknownst to you, Arum and I do talk off of a positive fandom, and this, my friend, is a brilliant segue to what we were talking about the other day.
Well, we do talk about Snyder Con, and of course, it's Full Circle, the Full Circle event, which was a charitable event and raised a lot of money for the charity. But we do talk about it, and of course, a lot has been said about this thing because it's kind of like the most exciting thing really, as far as I'm concerned, that's happened this year, because it was an event where people were so desperate to really be at it. Sold out in
Mm.
minutes, as you said, Russ. Raised a lot of money. The first real screening of the Snyder Cut on a in a movie theater. I don't remember if it was IMAX or
It
4K
was
or,
IMAX, yeah. Yeah.
but the point is that this was the first real screening, and not only that, you got to see it with Zack Snyder.
Mhm.
With Zack Snyder. Like, how much better could this be? It's like a dream. And you know what? If they did Snyder Con a few more times this year, Russ, it would sell out. People would still buy tickets to this. Russ, you said people flew internationally for this event.
Mhm.
It's a 3-day event. Obviously, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, Justice League, the whole thing. And I had speculated and I had said, fantasized about seeing Ray Fisher because they had just released the Cyborg figure. And I thought to myself, I'm still very fascinated with Cyborg, honestly. And as far as I'm concerned, Ray Fisher had one of the best performances I think ever in his career, along with the man who played his father. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen, and it was cool when he could kind of reconstitute the cassette player. I was like, this is awesome. How many of us have broken tech? In the end, it's like it's gone. Like, you couldn't fix it, right? There was no fixing those things, but he could put it back together and reconstitute the tape, hear his father's thoughts. You could go back. You could go back. And you know what? My father is gone. He sacrificed his life for me. But you know what? I still have his memories. These things are really important to him. This is what his father would have wanted. His father knew he could repair it. There were it just was. So it's funny. I had said, I bet you Ray Fisher's going to turn up. And sure enough, Russ, he did.
Yeah, you did say that. I didn't think that, but you said that.
I had a gut feeling. I had a gut feeling he would show up. And the reason why I had a gut feeling that he would show up is because of all the kind of craziness around his personal situation, where I think because they all had signed different NDAs, this is just my theory, they couldn't express themselves entirely and say every single detail. So now, they get under attack for certain things. And as far as I'm concerned, he wasn't necessarily talking about the quality of the film. He was talking about how he's being treated, and
Mm.
that was his personal experience. And you know what? He still managed to make a damn good film. He still managed to do a fantastic performance. So I thought to myself, okay, he's talking about something else, not the fact that he obviously loved playing this role and did a great job as Cyborg. This talented young man, at least that's how I viewed him, in the story, this talented young man under, unfathomable circumstances, having to have this change and lose his father. I mean, it was like one thing after another. His life
Mm.
was never going to be the same after this. And now all of a sudden he's almost like an omniscient being, right? So, okay, because we were talking about this and because the Snyder Con, it was a big deal. There's been so many YouTube videos and discussions about this. Um, and the notion of and it is true, Stavros, you're right. The lighting, the mics, and bet you mentioned Ben and Ray appearing and their background history of getting ready for both Justice League and the Snyder Cut, which people still want to hear about because the performances were so good, because the performances were so memorable, because they're great actors.
Mm.
um, and I like that they made Ben, a sexy Batman, where we get to see him working out, maybe not in each film, but we get to see him working out and getting that 6-pack ready. And, he is fit, really, in great shape. I like that we got to see that. We got to see somewhat more of a attractive, toxic male versions of these characters, including Superman. We get to see him with his shirt off. There was a lot of appeal. We got to, Cyborg in perfect physical condition. We got to see a lot of things, I think, as a woman who likes men, or anybody who likes to see fit men and men take that role of being the protector, of being, someone who fights for the right thing. We got to see a lot of that in these films. So as far as I'm concerned, it was very satisfying to see that. Now, the thing that Russ, you and I were talking about, in particular to Snyder Con, was about why Cavill could not be at Snyder Con. What was
Right,
there?
because there were all of these rumors that Cavill was going to show up, and there was going to be some announcement made, and that was the hot take, and I think that was actually reported in the trades at some point, or certainly it kind of wasn't on "We got this covered." It was, it was being reported much like it was actually. We should have learned our lesson for Comic Con when he was supposed to turn up. And the key word there in that tweet comment was disappointed, because I was a little bit disappointed with it as well, because I was expecting announcements and I was hoping that this was going to happen and I was hoping that was going to happen. And of course, none of that happened. And I said to her, and there was Aram and I were talking about this, and
Yes.
she said, "Well, say
Yes.
what you said."
What I said was there's a very specific reason why Cavill could not turn up to SnyderCon. And the reason is because of what happened to him very specifically during the previous year in 2022. And I think that if it, let's say if he showed up, people would have started to speculate about him returning to be Superman again. And I think that what we went through in 2022 with where he came back, he announced he was back, and then he wasn't back. That whole back and forth, this would have fed fuel to the fire of him coming back. In fact, people still did make memes of, hope is still alive, and pictures of Henry Cavill in the Superman suit.
Mm.
Hashtag hope is still alive, or hashtag he's coming back, or whatever, after the Snyder Con. Like, I think it was very interesting that people felt that way. And I think it would have been a lot of pressure on Henry Cavill unnecessarily after everything that he had gone through regarding this character. I don't think he can just kind of show up and have an experience like what Ray Fisher had and have an experience like what Ben Affleck had at that and talk about the preparing and everything, because people would have just been like, are you coming back, Henry? Henry, are you coming back? It would have been because even people from the audience were barraging poor Zach about, if you can make another film, would it be? Are you going to make this film? Like this anticipation, this excitement for wanting this thing so badly. I don't think Henry could really come back into this environment and do that at this time.
Well, I think it probably went something like this. Zach phones Henry and says, "Listen, I'm doing SnyderCon. Can you come?" And Henry's like, "Yes, of course, I'll be there." Then he's talking to Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca, and he's got, "It's brilliant. Ben's going to be there." And I guess what? Henry's going to be there. And they were like, "Oh, well, we can't have that, Zach, for these very reasons." Now, here, I'm not a fanatic. Like, I'm not a person that's full of hate and goes on attacking people online for not liking Zack Snyder and all that kind of thing. But if he'd have turned up, oh, no, was it thoughts on fitness with Nigel? I'm in the UK. It's always good to see you. Great. Fitness with Nigel. You can help us get down to our body fat
Yes.
ratios. There you go, Nigel. I'm in England too. You probably noticed because of my accent. Yeah, if Henry had turned up, you even if Snyder said, "Well, yeah, we're only here because like it's the end of it, and we just wanted to say goodbye." No, I wouldn't have had it. I wouldn't have believed it. I thought, no, that's it. They wouldn't have done that unless there'd been a reason. I would be absolutely 100% convinced that the Snyder Cut was coming back, and that's the only reason why Henry and Ben are there, and and nobody would have convinced me otherwise. So if I'm Pam and Mike, I'm thinking we just can't have this kind of reaction because it's just going to derail everything that we're trying to do, everything that we are trying to accomplish, to draw a line under this or move away from this or go in a different direction with James Gunn. It would have been a nuclear. Can you imagine what would have happened on the internet if Henry had turned up? So I think our room was absolutely spot on with that. With that hot take, it was like, that's a very astute observation, and I think you're absolutely bang on. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, and I think it is very interesting because obviously that's what many of us wanted. I wanted to see Henry Cavill just casually show up in a t-shirt and jeans, and or maybe even because think about this, Russ. He wouldn't have shown up with a shirt that had an S on it. That
Mm.
would have been confusing. Like it would have had like a little bit of tension to it, and
God, well, imagine he turned up in a black shirt with. I've got the black shirt with the S on it, right? Like just a t-shirt. If he'd have turned up in that, we would have lost our minds. We'd have
yes,
lost our minds.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And so it's unfortunate that that was the case, but I did think about that, and I realized that it just wouldn't have been the right, environment for him to show up in, even though we wanted it badly. And it's unfortunate that the mics weren't working and all this sort of stuff that happened with it. But come on, it was cool to see Ben Affleck kind of just casually sitting up there with Ray Fisher. They're just sitting, they're just hanging out. Like it was just like I would love to be on that stage with them. So
Mm.
it is true that it wasn't quite what we wanted, but at the same time, we couldn't get exactly what we wanted. I don't think it would have been possible to get everything we wanted out of this, but we
You
were
know
lucky
what?
to get anything
Oh,
at all.
sorry. Carry on.
I was saying it wasn't quite everything we wanted, but we were lucky to get anything at all. At least that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because on one of these sort of anti-Snyder videos I was watching, one of the guys said something that I've said in the past. Snyder has had multiple opportunities to kill this, like he has, and I feel in some ways he should, because if there is no hope of this ever happening, then just say, guys, I love you and I love your support, and it's really very kind of you. And I know you want me to complete these things, but I don't own the IP. I've got a big contract at Netflix. It's going to take me up for the next 10 years, and I'm done working on superhero movies. Like the Snyderverse, it is done. They are moving in a different direction, and I have no control, and I'm not coming back to do it. And I'd love to, but it's not going to happen. It's the end of the road, and we need to stop the hashtags. And we need to stop. And people would go, okay, but he doesn't do that. He says, "No, I'd love to complete it," and
He's
then we have the panel, and they say, "Well, what's the deal with the Joker?" Well, I don't really want to talk about that. You never know. And of course, people like me go, "Well, why can't you tell us about that? If there's going to be no Snyderverse, no Batfleck movie, then who cares? Tell us." But they won't tell us why. And this division is going to continue and continue and continue in the fan base. You go onto Reddit, you go onto Facebook, you go onto, I don't know what the other ones are, but whatever other ones there are people going at it still to this day. People desperately hating Snyder and slagging off the movies and saying they're the worst thing ever and it's not proper Superman. And if you like it, you're not a true fan and all that kind of thing. And you've got the other ones going, it's not over, it's carrying on. And you've got people willing Gun to fail, like wanting it to be the shittiest movie of all time. And if it is anything less than stellar, the war will go on. And I was talking to somebody, an anti sort of Snyder person, and I said, look, personally, I'm also over it. I'd like a definitive answer to all of this stuff. God, it sounds like it like occupies my every waking hour. It really doesn't. But I would like a resolution, one way or the other, for them to say, well, look, we'll give you an animated movie. Please stop. Okay, fine. Well, then we'll stop. But it almost seems like they don't want to do it
Yeah.
because because they because they can. You know.
Well, it would be foolish to nip it in the butt and shut it off. I don't think anybody would do that
Mm,
if they had such a strong fan base. And I think that nobody's ready for it anyway.
mm.
I think a lot of people would be disappointed. Plus, he has this whole thing with, and I'm kind of segueing into this. And Tom Jr. Jackson talks about his DVD collection of all his Superman films.
Mm.
Tom's fantastic collection, guys. Make sure you check out Tom Jr. Jackson's YouTube channel.
Yeah, I've got that box set, Tom, as well, like the Blu-rays, and that's the one with fucking with Rob's special features on it, right?
Mhm.
And all the special features on that Blu-ray. Do you know what? I actually might watch some of that tonight. No, I'm going to watch Miami Vice. What am I talking about?
And what's interesting about this is that I also think the reason why Snyder is not kind of cutting things off and stopping is because he's still working and is very successful. He's working on this Rebel Moon project with Netflix, right, Russ? And you and I
Mm,
were kind of talking about this, about the experience. He's happy at Netflix, and another very successful writer, the lady who has
mm,
done a lot of really good shows. Chandra from Chandra Land is her production company, but she's written. Um, I think she's involved with Bridgerton as well as Queen Charlotte. I hope I'm saying the right thing, as well as Grey's Anatomy. And she talks about her experience at Netflix. And I think for somebody like Zach, somebody like her, and even somebody like Tyler Perry talk about how the networks would constantly tell them no whenever they wanted to do something, or the studios would tell them no, and they get a yes at Netflix. I think it is very interesting. I think that if he were to nip the Snyderverse in the butt right now before Rebel Moon, it's not out yet, right, Russ?
No, 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 no.
If he were to nip it in the butt before Rebel Moon, I think that would be damaging. I think it's not that I don't think people would show up, but I think that his the conversation and even his name. I mean, after all, it's his name that's in this. His name.
Mm.
His name is
Zack Snyder's Justice League, quite so.
right, or Snyderverse or Zack Snyder's Justice League. His actual name is in this. Think about I would never stop promoting this thing. I personally would never stop promoting it because my name's in it. And every time it gets mentioned or printed somewhere, how do you think his name might be the name that's most printed when it comes to DC?
I just think there is never a DC movie conversation without his name cropping up, and the guy hasn't made a DC movie for like years, years and years and years. We're not, even if you take Zack Snyder's Justice League, that was 2 years ago now. We're still banging on about it.
And Mike Has Bad Knees says, my issue with the Snyder films is that the concepts were really great, but the endings would often with CGI battle where something deeper could have been made them really.
I agree, but isn't it a fact that Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman had a completely different showdown at the end? Like the whole thing was different, and WBD again, or WB as they were at that time, just mandated that it had to have the CGI battle. And the one thing about the DC EU we do know without a shadow of a doubt is that the executives knew better. The executives just kept interfering and making mandates, and you have to do this, and it has to be that long, and you got to do that, and all of that stuff, and negatively impacted the film. It's not to say studio interference is always a bad thing, but
Yeah.
in this case, in this case of the DCEU, with the benefit of hindsight that we have now, these were demonstrably shit choices. They couldn't have got this more wrong. They just couldn't have got it more wrong. In every call they made, post Man of Steel was the wrong call. It was the wrong call. Cut 40 minutes out of BVS, completely reshoot Suicide Squad to make it something that it was never intended to be. Nix Henry Cavill for a period of years and replace Superman, Batman, and Superman and Batman with Batgirl and Supergirl. Everything was wrong. Every decision they made was wrong, and the CU, the cinematic universe, suffered badly because of it.
And thoughts on Fitness with Nige says the Cyborg segment, sequence and arching storyline was superb. So glad to see that in the Snyder Cut. Paul has a question, and we are going to continue to talk a little bit more about Snyder in a minute. But I do want to answer Sebel's question, who says thoughts on Disney axing Willow and Co. from Disney Plus. Well, it wasn't a great Willow, the new Willow. It wasn't great, and Willow is a children's story. I'm not going to say that you can't like it if you're not a kid, but I always saw Willow as a children's story, and I was a child when I saw it. I thought it was great as a child, and it was just one of those fun fantasy movies that you're supposed to enjoy and have fun with, and it wasn't anything that I really kind of associated outside of it being a children's story. So they created another story for it, which I don't think was as popular as the original Willow. Which was just this kind of fun little folklore movie that I think children loved. I haven't met an adult who has told me that they are a diehard Willow fan, but I'm sure there are some out there. As far as I'm concerned, for a children's theme, it was cute. It was a cute story. But if they don't need it and it's not, a great story, maybe there'll be some cult following 20 or 30 years from now of a group of people. But I don't really know anybody who fell in love with the new one. Russ, did you watch it? Did you fall in love with it?
I started to watch it, because I appear on it. I would never put it on if I wasn't on this program, but I did. I watched some of it. I found that some of the people out there on YouTube that I listen to, the Drinker and all of those people, really hated it, and they were asking questions of it. That it being a children's thing, I just really didn't think it needed to answer. Like, it wasn't that kind of show. But I think the mistake that Willow makes, that this is an often leveled criticism at these sorts of shows, is they're all set in sort of like Los Angeles. It's all basically sort of downtown Los Angeles, and there's no consistency of um, place and time. Because you've got the one person who's English talking to the other girl that's a Valley girl, and then you've got the mum, Joanne Waddy Kilmer, who's brilliant in everything that she has ever done. But you have all these different accents, and but they're all supposed to be part of the same culture, but then they're not, because you go to another culture and they're all the same. And this isn't working. And I don't think that helped Willow in any way, shape, or form, having 21st century characters in a medieval fantasy show. Perhaps the same thing actually could be leveled at Rings of Power. Maybe, I don't know, because I only watched 2 or 3 episodes of that. I couldn't bear it. It was awful. What are my thoughts on it being cancelled? You have to wonder that maybe in the face of all of this, because Disney's losing a lot of money now. It's losing a lot of money. Like the streaming service is a disaster, isn't it? It's what they're producing, and the cost of which they're producing is not translating into subs, and it's certainly not translating into retention of subs. And it's a huge deal that they lost millions of dollars out of India, but that's because of the cricket. Right, so you've got 50 million screaming Indian cricket fans, and cricket is like a religion out there. That is true. And if you're not putting cricket on your channel, then they're not going to tune in for it, and they're certainly not going to pay for it, so they're going to cancel their subs. So I think that's not because the whole of India doesn't like woke Disney content. It's just because the whole of India loves cricket, and they lost the cricket deal. But that aside, you take the Indian, they're still losing subscribers. They're still spending lots and lots of money on TV shows for that platform. Their big hitting franchises being Marvel and Star Wars that aren't resonating with their core fan base. It's just not resonating. I mean, Andor was brilliant. No one's seen it. Mandalorian dropped off a cliff. Nobody can be bothered to keep up with Loki and this, and unless they absolutely have to. You hear streamers talking about this all the time. I would never watch this if it wasn't my job. I watch this so you don't have to. This is like a constant thing. But their two core brands are just not landing with their core fan bases, and they're not landing with their core fan bases because they've put their message and whatever else it is before their stories, and now people have switched off, which is a tragedy in the case of Andor. Andor's the best Star Wars, in my opinion, since Empire. I've said it a million times.
Well, to be honest with you, there's in the history of television and movies, there have always been good movies and TV shows that people haven't watched. So there's no guarantee, even if something is great, that people are going to turn out and see it. There can always be good content that may or may not be popular. So that's one thing. I think it's interesting that I honestly, I think in the network, if you look at network television from the 70s, 80s, and maybe even 90s, there were shows that were not great, but they were not, I don't know whether they were necessarily, when they were canceled or removed, whether anybody particularly cared, because they either didn't hit the ratings or, they just were not great shows anyway. Somehow they got made and disappeared from our lexicon and will be gone forever, and no one really cares. But if you look at a TV guide, if you pick up a TV guide, there's a ton of shows that could fall into those categories. There seems to be more focus on a lot of these shows. Honestly, there's going to be more focus on the reboot because that's a show that we know about. We're familiar with it. And so there's an expectation associated with it. But if it was a brand new show, never heard about it before, and it didn't hit well, like Andor, let's say, then you don't hear about it, right, Russ? I mean,
right.
So I think it is very interesting. Michaelito says he didn't care, didn't necessarily care for Willow. Bonzo says he just watched Batman versus Superman Extended last week. I hope, Bonzo, you tell us.
I hope you enjoyed it, man.
Yeah. Nathan says if Willow show was actually about Willow. Yeah, because I wanted to see more of him. I wanted to see more of Willow now. Not it, and honestly, it didn't have to be a groundbreaking story, just a good story. Maybe something we could have a laugh at. It could have been decent. I'm glad they are taking it off. It's a sign Disney knows they made a bad show. Interesting. Yes, Michaelito, I will take any bathtub scene with Lois and Clark for as long as I can take it. I'll put it on slow mo and extend that shit forever. I'll make it an hour long.
You know, we hardly ever our room, so
I made the Witcher scene between Cavill and that chick last forever. There's absolutely
oh,
no
you
reason.
you and me both. God, when that one took her shirt off, I thought, yeah, I've never seen that's perfect. That's perfection right there. I had a hard time watching that.
And
Yeah,
it took them like a day or two to film that shit. I would have been like, oh, this is heaven.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Me too. I mean, whatever it is, she's got it in spades. That one.
absolutely. So yes, Seville. I'm sorry. Yes, Mikey Lito, you certainly hit the nail on the head there. Stubble says, I haven't watched it and heard from anybody it was good. Yeah, a lot of people haven't watched Willow. So unfortunately, yes.
Honestly, Stubble, it was just bland. It was just, it was just sort of like LA teens making snarky LA comments and heavy-handed nonsense about the brother being indolent and the sister being kept down. Even she was fiery and is a brilliant sword fighter, and it's just that same story over again, except this time it was in Willow World and not MCU World. It was
Well,
just bland.
I have the Hulk to thank for my clothesline scene because who could forget those down and out days of, I can't remember if it was Bruce Banner or whatever he was supposed to be, running through the streets of America with no clothes and having to grab someone's clothes off the clothing line. Poor fellow,
Mm.
just randomly grabbing somebody's jeans and a t-shirt.
I think Mikey's referring to Henry Cavill in Man of
Him
Steel
too.
coming
Him
off to the
too.
nicking the
Yes.
clothes off the clothesline.
But I'm going to the
Oh,
precursor of
Superman would never steal. Sorry.
yes, the
It's Snyder
original.
massacred Superman. He would never steal people's clothes off the
That's true.
clothesline.
He left some cash there. He left a 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I what I mean is the very first time I ever saw a poor superhero have to grab some clothes to clothe their naked body was with the Hulk. Such fond memories.
Bill
And I
Bixby.
love yeah, and I love seeing when they have to do that, just randomly grab something and clothe their fit bodies. Certainly wonderful. Thank you to the editor who puts that in for someone like me. Yes, Tom Jr. Jackson, this is still spoilers of Guardian 3. So go ahead and do that if you like. Bonzo says all this talk about fit blokes. I think Russ could pull off something akin to Brad Pitt and Troy.
Right. Yeah. Okay. This is no pressure, guys. Like all I did was take my sweatshirt off and said I wanted to get a little bit skinny. Like, and now all of a sudden I'm fucking Don Johnson crossed with Brad Pitt. What the hell? Leave it out, Bonzo. Leave it out. No pressure. That's it. I want Nige. I want Nige to come on and get me super fit. That's what it is.
Nige, we need you.
Yeah, come on, Nige. Like the pressure's on now, mate. I've got to appear topless on the 22nd of December. This is
Oh
not a good look.
oh my god. Oh man. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Um Tom says Henry left Witcher because the showrunners were not saying true to the material. Yeah, it really did. It was not true. There should have been more nudity. There should have been more fighting. It should have been like off the charts or 300. Darth Plato. Yeah, well, we watched that film together recently, Russ.
We did, yeah.
And yeah, it's eye candy all the way, but it is attainable, but it's 8 hours of work. Like it's a full-time job and more, right? Russ, you were saying that a lot of these stars don't even get a chance to enjoy anything because they have to like
There's two stories I can tell you about that. And I remember it from I watched an interview with Ryan Reynolds many years ago before he was Ryan Reynolds and was actually just young Ryan Reynolds. He was off of yeah, right. So Russ is going to be the new Scott Adkins. No, I don't think so. He was fresh off to a guy, a girl, and a pizza place or whatever that show was, and he got landed with the role of Hawkeye or somebody in Blade 3. I can forget what the character was called. It might have been Hawkeye. Anyway, doesn't matter. They were interviewing him, and the girl said to him, the girl doing the interview says, "Oh, you look amazing, Ryan. Like, can you tell me, about this?" He says, "Yeah, no, I do. I look fantastic, don't I? I look absolutely." I said, "Absolutely great. I am ripped, and I look amazing." He said, "If only I had some time to enjoy it." He said, because actually my entire time is just spent in the gym, eating this, doing that, on the set, da 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 da. And I sleep like 4 hours and I've got to get up and do it all over again. So yeah, sure, I look fantastic, but I can't enjoy it. And you were mentioning Spartacus earlier on, and there's a scene in the special features of Spartacus where it's got Andy Whitfield and the Australian guy. He's in Suicide Squad, and I've forgotten his name. The Captain Boomerang, and he was Carl Reese in Terminator Genesis. That guy. Anyway, I can't think of his name. It's gone completely out of my head. But the pair of them are there, and they're sort of like in the pit where they've been put into the pit, and somebody hands them a protein shake, and they're both drinking their protein shake, going, "Please, just give me food. We just want food." And then the one guy that was in Wanted with Angelina Jolie, the Scottish guy, he said, "Yeah, I was in the car with Angelina Jolie, and all I could eat to get into this shape was like fucking protein shakes." And of course, the Jai Courtney, thanks Bonzo. Um, um, he said, me and Angelina Jolie were just sitting in the car farting, and I was like, I'm in the car with Angelina Jolie, like letting and these farts just smell, and it's like, I'm really sorry, but So what's my point? My point is, if you want to get like that, you have to be really, 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 really strict, really, 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 really consistent, and probably take some steroids underneath medical advice. And the people have said this before. I've watched these guys on YouTube that know much more about all of this stuff than I do. And most of them say, look, you just can't get like that fast. This is like a lifetime's worth of work. And, you've got a guy that's like, standing on his yacht with his shirt and his belly out. And then 6 months later, he's ripped to fuck and he's in Fast 10 or whatever it happens to be. And that's not natural. But you've also got to realize that Chris Evans or Henry Cavill. I don't think maybe Henry Cavill's a natty. I don't know. Nigel probably no, but most of these guys will be taking steroids, but they'll be taking steroids with like the best money that Hollywood can buy. Like they'll have people monitoring them and doctors and this and that and all the rest of it. So, yeah.
Well, Stubble says, never liked the term toxic masculinity. Then I remembered the mantra from my toxicology course: everything is toxic if the dose is too high, even water. Maybe the term should be masculine overdose. I
It's a
love
good
it.
name for a heavy metal band.
I am going to kind of requisition that masculine overdose. It's time for some masculine overdose. Thank you, Stubble, for that catchphrase. I love it, love it, love it. Mikey Lito says, Snyder never stopping the themes. He shouldn't have to. Fandom needs to grow up. Yeah, I wouldn't stop it. I would never stop it for perpetuity. Like even his final days of life. It's like, do you have any comments about the Snyderverse? It's like Snyderverse lives forever or something like that'd be. I would push the meme Snyderverse forever. And that would be it would actually transcend him to where people had forgotten that, like through years, it would amalgamate to another type of term. Maybe, I don't know, like how Wayland Yutani was a different company, but it became Wayland Yutani. That's what I think is going to happen with that term. I think it's going to live on forever. Mike has bad knees. Debate in nerddom is a tale as old as time. Yes, I'm assuming that's what you're saying here. And yeah, Wex, we know this is true because we're thinking it. Zach is still desperately dreaming about doing more DC, and he might. Who knows? We just don't know what's going to happen in the future, guys. So, Metro Nerd Girl says, you can see that Snyder doesn't want to say never to keep the possibility open. As a creative person, I totally get it. I get it too. It makes sense. You wouldn't turn your way. Gosh, if they had an RM verse, oh my gosh. I'd be like, today we're going to talk about the RM verse, but seriously, I'm not going to talk too much about the RM verse. I would be constantly saying that thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's making fans happy, right? It is, right? Right?
Oh, yeah. I've only got my straw poll of one. I just kind of want something definitive. I would just love it. And the fact that they don't ever say anything definitive makes you wonder, are there meetings going on? Are there discussions going on? So Mikey was saying earlier on that Oh, let's read this out. Henry is lightning in a bottle, and although there's a school of thought maybe Henry is too old, he is Superman. Get the story right. We have a gold mine. Yeah, Nigel, you're preaching to the converted right there. But Mikey was saying earlier on that there's no way that Justice League or anything like that would get sold to another company. And you're absolutely right; it would never get sold. But there's absolutely no reason why it couldn't get licensed. In England, okay, we don't have HBO Max, for example, so we got Titans on Netflix for the first couple of seasons. Then they exclusively had it on HBO Max. So they can certainly license it out if they chose to, if they wanted to. And as we said, I think it's last week or the week before last. It's just as easily Warner Brothers Discovery could get sold next week, and that'll be the end of it. And then it'll be a whole new raft of rumors and gnashing and all the rest of it, because they were talking before about um, nixing DC Comics as of Time Warner, if you like to go back in the day, entity, and just licensing out those characters. So on the one hand, yeah, Mikey's absolutely right. It's very, very unlikely that that would ever happen, but it's not unprecedented. This happens all the time with things getting licensed out, and people, Star Wars gets licensed out to McDonald's, for example. Today, you have a license to make those toys and drinks and whatever else it is that they want to do. So never say never.
Well, guys, I was gonna say Stavros mentions Rebel Moon is gonna be insane,
Hmm.
and it's due to be released December 22nd. We're gonna be covering it on Positive Fandom, maybe even on the Burnettwork. I don't know, but excuse me, it's something to think about. And Dark Plato says Sunday brunch, Sunday Snyder symposium. Yes.
Well, yeah, Darth Plato raises a good point. I mean, if people don't want us to talk about this, then just say, like, please, we've had enough Snyderverse, and we'll stop talking about it. I just think it's so much in the zeitgeist because of this SnyderCon thing. And again, as I said, these things are turning up on my YouTube channel from Snyder dislikers. I'm not going to say haters, because a couple of these guys said, "Oh no, we really like the films, but this cult has gone insane. This has got to stop." As Mikey was saying earlier on. Um, close up on Henry. Um, yeah, so it just doesn't seem to be going away.
I'm just having some fun, guys. I'm sorry. Um, well, Tom Jr. Jackson mentions that Rebel Moon has a sequel coming out and an open world game. Oh, and books and comics. So Zach is fully immersed in Rebel Moon universe, and I have a feeling, he still feels very invigorated and full of energy, and I feel like he could probably do this for the next 20 years. Russ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of got sidetracked, didn't we? But you were saying before about Netflix have just said to the lady that did Grey's Anatomy, on the network they would just say no, no, but Netflix just keeps saying yeah and yeah, and you've got to think it's not only Rebel Moon, isn't it? It's the Army of the Dead verse as well. So he's got two massive things going on at Netflix. He should. Yeah, he's obviously completely happy there, because they've said yes to his Rebel Moon, yes to his Rebel Moon sequel, yes to his Rebel Moon animated show, yes to his open game, yes to the comics. This is like it's a thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's
Is Marvel
literally
that, Russ?
it's literally another Snyderverse. This is this. You're talking about. Someone said he should change his company name to the Snyderverse. So maybe, yeah, but this is the Rebel Moon is a Snyderverse in and of itself. It's like it's his idea, his concept, his movie. So I hope it's going to be awesome. I really do. I mean, because I
I'm gonna be
like I
playing the
like
game,
what he does. So
and I'll be falling to my death a million times in the game, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna be playing. um, and Stavros talks about how he can't believe that Dark Crystal never got a second season. Yeah, this is an example of what I'm talking about, Stavros and Russ and everybody in the chat. We know Dark Crystal was a quality story with the work they did to create it. And the fact that it was such a high quality, beautifully made production, but didn't get that second season is exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of good work out there that doesn't get renewed, that doesn't get that stuff. And I kind of don't like that. I think if it's something as high quality as this, something that's so special as the Dark Crystal, at least for me, I felt it was very special, that it should have gotten an
was it on
extra.
Netflix?
Yes, it was.
Well,
Yes.
isn't this the thing? My everybody now knows it's sort of come out that if when Rings of Power didn't hit its numbers, if the show isn't, if it's anything less than 50%, they don't care what it is, they won't do another season of it. And that's quite an interesting way of looking at things, because if you think about Star Trek The Next Generation, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I've listened to Rob so many times, Rob my Burnett say so many times that the first couple of seasons are a bit shit, and there's some good episodes, but it doesn't hit its stride until like season 3. If you transpose that to the 21st century and it's on Netflix, then Star Trek The Next Generation, 7 or 8 seasons, however, it doesn't happen, because the first season wasn't that great and people just didn't really watch it that much, and so on, and it gets cut and that's the end of it. So the Dark Crystal could have gone on to be the best show ever, but never got the chance. What's Darth Plato saying here? Real Moon, a peaceful colony on the edge of the galaxy is threatened by armies of a tyrannical regent named Belisarius. Oh, he was a Roman general, Belisarius, in the later Roman Empire.
I love it. It sounds great. I guess this is a continuation of it. The desperate civilians dispatch Cora, a young woman who has a mysterious past, to seek out warriors from nearby planets to help them challenge the regent. Sounds like a battle beyond the stars.
It does. It does a little bit. Fine, fair enough.
And of course, Darth Vader is confirming your comments about this. Retro Nurgle says the Willow show missed the point of the original movie. It was missing the whimsy and charm. Yeah, what happened to that? It was supposed to be kind of magical. You remember when he makes the baby go to a place where evil cannot harm her, and
Mm-hmm.
the witch was like, "Oh my gosh, you made," and it was just this, it was supposed to be these amazing, cute things, and the cuteness of it, the whimsy, the charm. It's too bad that they push that to the side, because we need movies that have whimsy and cuteness and charm. Yeah, we need it. Okay. Bonzo says, I thought Batman versus Superman could have been magnificent, but the plot holes kind of took me out of it. I really liked Zach's aesthetic. Now, this is something that I think it's really important to say. There is a certain aesthetic that he has that is appealing. It feels very clean. It feels like a very polished version, a complete version of his characters that he's able to push through. So when you get that character, you know exactly where the person stands. There's no confusion. It's very complete, and it's very, focused on what this character is going to be. There's nothing really up for speculation about them. So if the character is more focused on sort of, let's say, a darker path, that's the path they're going to go down. If it's a lighter path, fine. But they go through experiences that are profound and heavy. So that's not what you want to see. It can tear you away, or away from the story that you might have wanted, maybe something lighter. I'm not going to say every Superman story is a light story, but certainly, as far as I'm concerned, Man of Steel feels very different from every other
I
Superman
think
story.
it hasn't just occurred to me now, but the thoughts popped into my head again now. No one can deny that they were divisive movies, but I think where I draw a distinction from that is I see a lot of criticism of these films, and it's always based around what Superman would or wouldn't do. We've even had it on the chat here. Well, a real Superman would have done this, and a real Superman wouldn't have done that, and he would have, and Superman would, and Superman would. So a lot of it seems to me it's a subjective emotional response to these movies did not depict Superman and tell a Superman story that you wanted. Not that these movies were bad, but you just didn't like these movies. And those are two entirely. It's a bit like me at 300. I love 300 for what it is, but it's not the Battle of Thermopylae I wanted to see. I wanted to see a realistic depiction of the Battle of Thermopylae, like in Troy or something like that. Where they actually showed the real story and not a Frank Miller graphic novel of guys running around in leather underpants with their chests out, which is not accurate at all. I wanted to see that. I didn't get that. So I like 300 because it's Snyder and it's 300 and it's awesome and it's epic, but it's not the film I wanted. And I think I couldn't go on now and go on hating on it, going, well, it's shit because it's historically inaccurate, and it's this because of that, and it's not this and it's not that, and da 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 da. Da. No, that film is what it is, and that was their take on it. So the argument of Superman would and wouldn't do, and what Superman would know, well, they chose to do this with Superman. That you don't like it is immaterial to the choices that they made, and you are perfectly entitled to hate it and not like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's shit. Objectively shit. It just means you think it's shit, and those are different things, right?
um, I think it is very interesting when we're talking about this because, you know, we're talking about a certain aesthetic and it's appealing. It does, his aesthetic is appealing to a lot of fans.
Mm,
And it's okay to have more than one point of view, but there is such a thing. And, you know, Stubble had kind of joked around about this masculine overload. And that's entirely what 300 is about. And if I could compare it to Troy with Brad Pitt, where that might also not necessarily be 100% historically accurate. And yeah, there it was about masculine overdrive in that film too, but it did feel like they were trying to tell a legitimate story, a very
mm.
different tone. 300 was all about the vision, the
The visuals, yeah.
cinematography, the you know, the lighting, the emotion, even the slow motion, you know, was meant to capture very specific things. And I mean, the whole movie could have been told in slow motion, you know, an action film
Mhm.
in slow motion where all you see are muscles flexing and agony on faces and swords going into torsos and people's, just like the pain on their faces. 300, there could have been a slow motion version of 300 and I would have watched it because it would have been like watching something out of the Olympics, like if they could slow it down with everybody just flexing. And it was just a flex fantasy of an event. And I think it's okay. I think it was the vision. That was the vision of that event for him. And that's okay. But obviously the truth gets lost along the way. However, what an impact, Russ, because whether we like it or not, people are always going to associate that battle with fit, soldiers who are tanned in the Mediterranean sun, saying things like, and of course, famous sayings like, then we'll die in the rain, all that cool
Mhm.
shit that we like to hear. It's always going to be associated with that, even though we know it may not necessarily be the case or true or how it played out. Um, and I guess if it spurs excitement in history, if it
Always
brings
a good thing.
if,
Always a good thing.
if it brings them to the table or brings somebody to a point where they might pick up a book and read what actually happened, um,
It's
maybe
literally what brought me into history, into ancient history, was watching 300 Spartans on the telly when I was little. I couldn't believe it when they died at the end. I was just waiting for them to be, like as a young child, like 6 or 7, whatever I was,
well, Michael
and they all
Eagle
died, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what, what, and that really upset me. And then I went to the library, as I've said lots of times, and it's been with me ever since.
And look at you now, Russ,
Mm.
here on Sunday afternoon UK fitness show on Positive Fandom, where we are just going to pump iron. It's going to be like as good as that, Call on Me video with the girls in the 1980s
Mm.
leotards, Russ. And you're going to be the instructor at the top with fitness with Nige. Just
Because
getting
I
us.
think Nigel's supposed to be the instructor. I'll be the guy that's like standing amongst all the girls in the video with the black shorts, trying not to look pervy and failing.
It's going to be fantastic, guys. Our Sunday afternoon UK fitness show on Positive Fandom. I'd watch too. Oh, wait a minute. I'd have to work out. I guess I'd have to work out, Mikey Lito. I guess I'd have to start pumping iron for this. And Retro Nurgle says Michael Bean. I love Michael Bean. I hope I'm thinking it's the right Michael Bean. Yes, Jai Courtney. Oh, yes, that's right. Stavros feels bad for Hugh Jackman. The most he's something in a life for honestly, I don't feel bad for Hugh Jackman because he was great as Wolverine, redefined that character. Even though he doesn't look like Wolverine, but he's not the same height and thing. I think he was marketable as Wolverine, but he also is a song and dance man. That guy likes to do musicals. What were you going to say, Russ?
I think Stavros there he feels sorry for Hugh Jackman, because at that point we were talking about what these guys have to go through to get into such physical shape. And Hugh Jackman has spoken often about how he had to dehydrate in order to be
Oh,
really popping. And he said, but guys, that's not a weight loss tip. That this is extremely dangerous to do it, and we have all the doctors and everybody monitoring us all the time to make sure that we're okay. It's not a smart thing to do in your bedroom. It's like not. You can't do it. Um, and he spoke a lot about this, because obviously people were talking about his physique the entire time, and he'd spent a lot of time talking about and showing his training regime and saying, look, it takes months of dedication, but guess what? I'm getting paid. This is my job. It's my job to eat what they tell me to eat. It's my job to train when they tell me to train. It's my job to look like this on the set. That's part of my job. That I'm getting paid to do this. You're not getting paid to do it. You want to get ripped, get ripped. Go do it. It's possible, but difficult. And I think that's the point he was making.
well, thank you, Russ, for clearing that up. I'm sorry, Stavros, I didn't realize that's what you were talking about. Honestly, I do like to see ripped masculine overload, but it's not absolutely necessary. And honestly, just the male presence is good enough for me, guys. um, uh, Joe Tyson says, "Have you guys watched Silo?" I haven't.
I don't know
Russ?
what that is, Joe. If you can drop something in the chat and tell us a little bit more about it.
Mhm.
Um, That would be great. And thoughts on fitness with Nige goes on to say definitely not protein shake. Well, this is it. It's probably steroids as well. I mean, I think actually Tom Hardy outed it. He said, don't think I got like this on my own, dear. Sort of tacitly admitting that he had to take steroids to get into shape for Bane. But as I think we said earlier, I definitely said earlier on, they've got all the doctors Hollywood can buy monitoring them. It's not like they're getting like a dodgy shot from a bloke down at the local YMCA. This is stuff.
Well, Darth Vader says, "Never too late to be fit." Parmenion was leading the Macedonian phalanx at 70, and Demetrius, one eye, was leading his own battles at 82. Interesting. And
Just
Mark, oh,
can't
hey,
believe how unbelievably tough those people were. I remember doing that Romani walk in that
yes.
armor and all of that stuff, and I, it was like a struggle. And we were cutting corners and we were a bit soft. They must have been extraordinarily tough people. So yeah,
Yeah, you make a good point, Russ. And we definitely should talk about that a little bit more at some point. Maybe we will do a fitness special on Positive Fandom and on the Burnettwork about this because I think it
maybe I
is
should start
important.
documenting my gym journey and
Yes.
send you little tapes of it.
Yeah, let's do that, and let's turn this into something positive. Make it a fitness journey. I promise you, I will start working out again. Marco says
You
none
have
of
to
them
promise
are
me,
natural.
Rita. You just need to promise yourself.
I promised myself. Um, Marco says there's a lot of CGI too. No way Hemsworth was tweaked in Love and
Well,
Thunder.
Chandler, this is true, Marco. It's something as soon as we've gone down this fitness road, 'cause my daughter is incredibly fit. She's a boxer and an athlete and a karate champion and all of that. And yes, I am bragging, and she's my child, and I'm going to. And she got a job at Sky Sports.
Yay!
Boom, landed an internship at Sky Sports. We couldn't be happier. It's like she opted not to go to university. She put all of her eggs in this Sky Sports internship, and she got it. And I couldn't be prouder. But what's my point? um, she watches a lot of fitness guys like Will Tennyson and all these people on YouTube, and they talk a lot about celebrity fitness, and they all do the same thing. So Will Tennyson you'll see a picture of him standing there, and he is ripped and shredded, and he looks absolutely beautiful. And then it's got 30 seconds later, and it's the same picture, and he looks completely different. Still looks fit, and he still looks buff, but he's nothing like this ripped Adonis, like Hercules Greek god come to life. And he said, yeah, it's because now look, here's my setup. So now I just turned off all of those lights, and the light is there. So when you see a picture of Chris Hemsworth doing something on Instagram, everything is set up to make his biceps look like they're the greatest, most huge biceps in the world. It's all lit perfectly, and we are very unlikely to ever look that good, and certainly not without the lighting and the photography and the photoshopping and everything else that goes into it. So whoever was talking about that, absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment. Um, Thoughts on fitness with Nige says Henry and Tom Cruise are the real deal. Be certain of that, definitely.
Hmm.
And Darth
Yeah,
Vader
so you're
says,
saying they're natties, are you? I would say so. I don't know. Tom Cruise probably. Henry, I would guess so. I mean, you've seen he lifts up gargantuan weights. That bloke, Jesus. Anyway,
I think they're
dudes
both
galore.
the real deal. They, especially Tom Cruise, he looks real. Like he just has an incredible body. Just he just has
So
that.
Darth Plato's clearly been on Tube Galore, a go-to site for an aggregator that we might know about.
And Retro Nerd Girl says, "Oh yeah, masculine overdose, sweet,
It's
yes,
such a brilliant name for it, like a Steel Panther, metal parody band.
yeah." It does sound like a metal band.
In fact, I might change it to Masculine Overdrive. I think I'm gonna write that down. I've
And
got to
guys,
find a. I've got. Thank you, chat. I'm going to find a use for that.
And Ron Cooper says, "Thank you, Glastonbury. We are masculine overdrive." Yay! The
Donington.
heavy metal synth wave Miami Vice inspired positive fandom band. Yay! And workout crew. Dark Place says, "Hit the like." He should rename his production company. See, that's maybe. So Silo, Joe Tyson's talking about Silo. It's a movie, saying I'm assuming he said, or someone had said it was amazing. And guys, gee, yeah, are you getting excited again, Mikey Leader? I'm so glad to hear that. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. Hey, Thomas Bertoldi, hope you are well.
Hey,
Oh,
man.
yes. And our friend Maria Espino, she has her first stream at 6 p.m. Pacific on her channel after the sequels, a new live stream about her new animated film coming up. A good friend of the channel. I didn't see her here. Tom, did she stop by today? Also, Bonzo Kilborn says, Marvel gave Daredevil to Netflix. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's right. Bonzo's alluding there to the licensing of the Snyderverse, and I was thinking the other week actually about this, Bonzo. Begun the streaming wars have and all the rest of it, but they're just not as profitable as people thought they were going to be, as these companies thought they were going to be, right? And Disney's losing money hand over fist, and the subscription model, it's a bit like the Roman Empire. It continuously has to be fed. Like, it needs to get more and more and more to keep what it's already got in going. So it needs more conquests and more money and more. So it needs more and more and more and more and more subscribers to be able to produce the content that the current subscriber base is used to doing. Is that a sustainable model for Warner Brothers? Is that a sustainable model for Disney? Or are we going to see Apple and Netflix dominate, or Amazon and Apple and Netflix dominate, or something like that? And the Disneys and the HBOs and the Paramounts and the whatever other ones that there are going, sort of go, you know, fuck this, is costing too much money, and actually we can make money, more money, by not having a streaming service and licensing out our shit to Netflix, who will pay us through the nose to have it, and then we'll get paid for that, and we won't have any of the overhead and any of the bother. Maybe we could enter that world. I don't know.
Maybe Tom Jr. Jackson says, see Artem in the upcoming Broadway play When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having coming to Broadway on 2024. Legends. How did you know, Tom?
What's that? And
Legends.
me, I'm going to be in Troy Part 2, am I?
Yes.
The Odyssey.
Legends of the Brave Bard says, fun, dazzling, epic adult fantasy series full of action, intrigue, romance, and heart. How did you know what our channel was about? Oh, my
That's right,
goodness.
Legends.
You guessed it. Oh, my gosh. And Mikey Lito says, look at your car again. Oh, my gosh. Well, guys, we are at the 2-hour mark, and we do have to close the show. Honestly, I really do appreciate everybody being here today. Tom Jr. Jackson, we are all goof people. Thank you so much for being here and joining us today. Stubble, thank you for the super chat. I am going to get myself a nice warm beverage with caffeine in it and think about masculine overdose as I'm drinking it, Stubble. All thanks to you. Thank you so much for that. Stubble says Russ will be Leslie Nielsen in the training montage.
I've not seen it, but I'm sure that's a derogatory Stubble. Thanks for that, mate. I'll carry that with me all the way down to Tesco's now as I go get my dinner. But cheers, mate. Thanks, Stubble, pal.
Gary Van Sandwich says Silo is a bunker-based sci-fi film from Apple TV. It's a mystery murder show. Oh wow! I did not know
Okay.
it was.
So that was the thing that Big Joe was watching.
And we got to check that out. Thank you for letting us know, Gary and Joe. Guys, make sure you check me out on Twitch. I stream on Twitch and on YouTube at the same time. So if you see me streaming here, I'm also streaming there. And also check out Retro Nerd Girl's channel as well. Retro Nerd Girl is here today, guys. Do check out her channel. Also check out Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. Tom Jr. Jackson has his own YouTube channel, guys. He also has a live show on Fridays called Funko Pop Live. Definitely pick it out. Check it out. Joe goes on to say it's about 10,000 humans living in an emotional silo without any real knowledge of why they have been told. Oh, that, you know what, that kind of reminds me of how they keep people trapped in cults. But it sounds great, Joe. I really
a bit like
do.
the Truman Show or something like that. Like they've been told outside is a toxic wasteland. Is it some sort of experiment? And are they? Cue the weather girls. It's raining men, right?
Yes, it is. Mikey Lito, how did you guess? Legends of the Brave Bard says, you guys are fun, just saying. Well, so are you, Legends of the Bard.
Thanks,
So glad
Legends.
you came by. And you know something? Thoughts on fitness with Nige? You know what, Nige? Go ahead and throw some fitness at us the next time you see us or hit us up. Russ and I are committed to, being in our best fitness so go ahead and let us know what you think. Here, I know you were talking about the stars, but we also want to be fit here too and appreciate any advice. 100% naturally fit people, Henry, as beast like strength. Definitely right about Hemsworth and Co. But taking gear requires significant work too,
Yeah,
guys.
that's true. I mean, steroids will help, obviously, and help a lot. But you can't just sort of sit on your couch eating pizza and steroids and hope to get a body like Chris Hemsworth. Ain't gonna happen. You still have to put the hours in. It's just that they will increase your musculature to levels that, do you know what? Actually, I don't know, but you can't sit and do nothing. Essentially, you still have to do the work.
Absolutely. And thoughts on fitness with Nige. Thank you so much for your kind words about my coronation stream. I was so proud, Nige, that to even see the coronation, be able to watch it and talk about how much it does mean to me and my family. And for the St. Lucian flag, there was a Grenadian flag too there. It was wonderful to be part of it. Certainly, I am an Anglophile, as you know, and I'm so glad that you liked the coronation stream. And I'm going to be covering other events as well as they come up. I did one or two streams about the British royal family. And don't you worry, Stubble, I will be looking at other royal families outside as well, outside of the British royal family. But for this coronation, it was a very special event. And I was just so glad we could watch it. Thank goodness that it was televised and we could enjoy it here in the US. So, and thanks for checking out the stream. Thoughts on fitness with Nige. And he talks about Tesco, went there earlier.
Tesco Metro, you have to remortgage your fucking house to go down there now. When I got back from the States last year, what was it? Ribeye steak was £4.45. It's £6.10 now, Nige. I can't get over it. I just can't get over how it's gone up to over £6 for a steak in the Metro. You having a bubble? Whew.
It is unfortunate that that's happening, but Russ, where can people find you?
Well, normally here on a Sunday, or you can drop me a line at contact@russellwhitfield.com, or reach out to Tom Jr. Jackson or Rita or RM, sorry, or any of the guys here, and they'll be able to put you in touch with me. But more importantly, where can people find you, RM?
Well, guys, you can always find me here on Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay and the fandom. You can also find me on the Burnettwork. As you guys know, I am the creative content director at the Burnettwork. So you can find me doing shows there as well. Every single day, I stream a live stream of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, or some kind of game. I do about an hour of gaming every single day. So you can always count on that. Coming up, I'm going to be doing Star Trek Resurgence. soon it's going to be streaming on Positive Fandom and then the Burnettwork. You can also find me streaming on Lorraine Creole's channel. She's currently on vacation right now, but you can still find me streaming on there from shows we've done together that we've recorded and future shows coming up, as well as the 1/6 Scale Man Network for Uncivilized Scoundrels. So there's a lot going on, guys. And I do want to thank all of you for your support again. Stubble, thank you so much for the catchphrase masculine overdose. Of course, Russ, you're taking it as overdrive.
Mhm.
And and of course, for the super chat, Stubble, thank you so much for supporting what we're doing here. And Fitness with Nige, we appreciate any fitness tips you can give us. We're accepting the fitness challenge. We're going to be fit. I can't wait to see how all this turns out, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for stopping by today. Hope you all have enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody in the chat, especially for the sort of like the the lively debate, like Rogue and Nathan and oh, I can't remember who else. I'm so sorry because we get so you can see the chats going up the sky. Basically, to disagree with about stuff on Man of Steel and all the rest of it. That's fine. That's why we're here. Like
Mhm.
I don't. It's fine to disagree. Like I don't agree with your points. You don't agree with mine. That's absolutely fine. But it's always brilliant that people can come on here and throw a spanner at us and go, no, I think it's shit. And it's like, oh, well, I don't. I'll defend it. That's brilliant. So we're so fortunate on this particular stream to have such giving and engaged members of the chat. And it's genuinely true. Like I see the names popping up, and it's kind of like it's like seeing old mates. Like Big Joe turns up, and I called him Big Joe. Like, I don't even know if he's big. He could be small, but it's kind of like, oh yeah, that Big Joe. No, we're just killing time till you got here, mate. That's all right. We'll start now. All that stuff. It's wonderful. I feel like I've got a whole group of friends that I don't even know out there. And thank you for having me as a part of this show, Oram, and thank you, chat, for being as awesome as you are.
Well, Russ, as you know, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Tom Jr. Jackson, we're all goof people. And everybody, please remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.